Have you ever felt like you've lost yourself? Not because something terrible happened, but because you quit listening to yourself? There's a story that I have never shared quite like this before, and it's when I first moved away from my hometown, away from everything and everyone that I ever knew, and I went on a journey. And this journey was what I thought, 33 on the clock, what was going to change my life. And it was essentially me chasing my dreams. I will have to say I had a dream, and my dream was to learn to surf and to surf well. And I really wanted to compete one day. I had that competitive spirit from a young age, growing up with the boys and playing sports. And I loved that kind of thing. And board sports, like that was my absolute dream. And so I thought when I moved to Hawaii, this was going to change my life. And in some ways it did. But what surprised me the most is that Hawaii didn't heal me. It simply became the place where I was able to slow down enough to hear myself again. There were many days that I spent at the beach alone, many, many, many days. And I started immersing myself in the nature, allowing the sunlight and the codes through the sun to shine on me, through my eyes, all over my body, drenched in salt water daily, if not 2-3 times a day. I was really starting to live this lifestyle of this more slow, intentional pace that I had never lived before, because it was constantly this rush, 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 and got to get things done, and got to go to another party, got to go, blah, 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 like whatever it was just like a constant go. And through the years, I started to remember. I started to not only remember my power, but I also started to remember the trauma and the really ugly things and the really unglamorous things. Because, going through a spiritual awakening or healing the darkest parts of yourselves and realizing that what you're really trying to do is merge the light and the dark and be okay with walking side by side with your dark side, is not very glamorous, and it's hard work. And I had to really realize who I was in order to continue to up level and step into the life that I knew I was created for. One story I want to share because it just stands out to me, as it was one of my first times ever surfing. And it's quite hilarious because growing up as a skater and a snowboarder, we constantly wax the bottoms of our boards, right? So I remember arriving on the Big Island and running over to this house. They were having a huge board sale, and I grabbed my first board, and he sold me the board, and I took off across the street, and he said, "Hey, you're gonna need this." And he threw me a piece of wax, and I was like, "Oh, thank you," didn't even think about that. And I paddled out to the closest reef where I saw some local kids surfing. And I just remember sliding all over the board and being like, how the hell do they stay on these things? Like, I could not figure it out. And it had dawned on me, not only had I completely lathered my entire body, including my stomach, with sunscreen, I had actually waxed the bottom of my board. And for anyone who has never surfed before, you don't do that. You wax the top of your board, because that is how your feet stick to the board and your chest has grip. And so that was a absolute terrible fail. And it wasn't necessarily a failure. It was a moment of learning. I'll give myself grace on that. And unfortunately, I had made it all the way out to the break and tried to surf a wave like this. And that ended me up in a hospital visit with Vana and scrapes all over my body. I got so messed up. So never be too old to take advice or learn something from somebody and asking for help. I think that was one of my biggest takeaways from that moment. But looking back on this story, I actually think I was completely disconnected from myself when I had arrived, because not only had I been immersed in lots of drinking and substances, I was not taking care of myself. Yeah, I was working out a little bit here and there and, eating pretty well, but I was not feeding my soul. I'd spent many years trying to become this person that everyone wanted me to be, or who I thought I wanted to be or needed to be. I was surviving rather than thriving and leaving relationships. I had a 7-year relationship and it just went down from there. My first boyfriend at 17, 7 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. It's like every relationship just went down, 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 down. And I was just chasing this feeling that, okay, I had to move that pillow. I was just chasing, validation from the external world and chasing achievement, but I was never actually asking myself, what do I actually want, until I moved to Hawaii. And I think if I could sit down next to that younger version of myself, I would tell her, slow down. Slow it down. Slow is fast and fast is slow. I absolutely love that saying, and I tell my son it all the time, and he's always like, what, Mom? And I'm like, yeah, fast is slow and slow is fast. I'm like, yeah, fast is slow and slow is fast. Your soul has been speaking to you this entire time. You don't need to become somebody new. You just need to listen again. This story found you. I don't believe it was by accident. Go ahead and take one deep breath and ask yourself, when was the last time I truly listened to myself before asking everyone else what they thought? And truly answer this. Take a moment, write it in your journal, and take this time for yourself. I love you. And until next time, I'll see you then.